Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. We're going to finish up the PowerPoint today. So make sure you watch all of this. There will be a Google Doc attached with this assignment. So that is your work for today or over the weekend. It'll be due Monday. All right. So, of the elements and on the periodic table, most of the elements are classified as what we would call metals. And I think if you guys think about it, you know what a metal is. Okay. Like aluminum, anything, especially you see that might be like silvery, that would probably be a metal. Okay. Let me move. Sorry. Metals appear to the left. So over here, all of the blue of the zigzag line on the periodic table. And they can be identified by three words. And we've talked about one of them a little bit. I want to talk about the other two right now. Luster, the word luster, and we'll get into a lot of that when we do minerals this spring. But the word luster means shiny. Okay? So if something is shiny, it has luster. If it doesn't shiny or like dull, okay, no shine to it, that has no luster. Malleability, we talked about last lesson. Malleability means metals can be pounded down, okay? They can be pounded flat. And then conductivity means electricity can go through it, okay? So those are three properties. We'll always go back to that properties word. Three properties that metals have. All right. Then there's also things called non-metals, obviously non or not metals. And there's less of them. Hydrogen's up here over in the corner, and then all these over here that are shaded purple for now. Okay, those are called non-metals. And they are generally, their state of matter is gas at room temperature, so at like 70 or 72. And they have little luster because they're a gas, so they're not going to shine. They are brittle. I don't know if you know what the word brittle means, okay? Maybe in the holidays you have peanut brittle, like at your grandparents or something, real like snappy. Sometimes they say bones are brittle because they break. Brittle means real breakable. And they are poor conductors, meaning electricity does not go through them. Major examples, sulfur, helium, oxygen, and of course, hydrogen. All right, there are a few which are called metalloids, and they go right by that diagonal line. They're kind of right here, sort of in the middle. And they're a little bit of both. They have some properties of metals and some of non-metals. And again, there's not many of them, 6, I think, of the metalloids. All right. Metalloids are generally solid and are semiconductors. And semiconductors is a word you will hear if you guys are, any of you are techies, or semiconductor is a computer technology word. That's why silicon is in that group, because silicon is in your computers. All right, let's look at some questions here. These are from our textbooks. It says use the physical properties in the table to label these down here as metals, metalloids, or nonmetals. So A here is shiny, so that means it has luster, and it is malleable and thermal or conducting heat. Okay, so what do we think that would be? Well, that is the metal. All right, B is shiny, but it's brittle. Remember, we go back to that word. Its thermal conductivity is down a little bit. So what do we think that is? Take a guess at home. That is a metalloid. C is shiny, malleable again, and a lot of thermal conductivity. Take a guess. Again, a metal. D is a gas. That should be a hint from last slide. Ding, 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 ding. Not malleable and no conductivity. So that would be a non-metal. All right. Next, they want to know, what additional physical properties do you think you could use if you were asked this question? Another hint you're going to be, what additional properties could help you compare different elements. Okay? Well, here's a whole list. Their color, their size, their shape, density is always used, and texture. Probably should have talked to you more about that word texture. Texture is how something feels. Smooth, rough, bumpy. Those words are texture words. All right. So, applying it to our lives, which elements make up our earth? Well, there are 9 main ones that make up the earth: iron, nickel, silicon, oxygen, of course, aluminum, calcium, sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Those are the 9 elements that make up earth. Okay. And we'll get into this later in the spring when we do rocks and minerals, but perhaps in the elementary, you learned the layers of the earth: the crust, the mantle, and the core. All right, the crust is obviously the outer layer, which our continents are on there, and the ocean. Okay, so the crust is oxygen, silicon, and aluminum. Okay, the mantle or middle layer is softer rock, again silicon, oxygen, iron, and magnesium as we get further down into the earth. And then the core is solid iron and nickel. All right, so if we look at this question from the last slide, what are the main elements in Earth's core and which class do they belong to? Okay, well, as we had on the last slide, it is iron and nickel, and those are metals. Okay, so if we go back to the category or the properties of metals, they would have them. All right, let's look at this question. Beautiful rock. It says, despite the many different colors on the canyon walls, all of the sandstone is mostly made of the same elements. What do you think the most common elements are? All right, and it says you can check the internet. We'll just talk about it real quick. Oxygen and silicon are the 2 most common elements in sandstone. And again, when we get into rocks this spring, we'll talk a lot more about why that is. All right, well, other than the earth, we of course have the atmosphere and the ocean. So the atmosphere obviously is made of gases, and they are 78% nitrogen. You might think, well, you'd think it's oxygen, but it's actually nitrogen. 21% oxygen, and the rest is a combination of things. CO2 is not an element. We'll get into what that is later. Okay, but that's carbon and oxygen combined together. All right, salt water that makes up the oceans are made of hydrogen, oxygen, sodium, and I won't go on, but obviously H2O water would be hydrogen and oxygen. Salt, which we'll get into more next lesson, is sodium and chlorine combined. It's called a compound. And again, we'll get into that next week or 2 weeks. All right, living things like us, anything living or that was once alive contains what's called carbon. Okay. Other elements that are abundant, which means there's a lot of it: hydrogen, oxygen, you can read it, but I want you to just know that the main element is carbon. All right. Here's a list of all, or not all, a lot of the elements found in different things. I will just leave that there for a second. If you need to, you can take a screenshot of this, but I'm not going to, there won't be a question really or anything on this that huge, massive list. All righty. Actually, we will stop there. We'll go over this next week. That was a lot to take in, I know, but get your questions done. Have a great weekend and be Spartan strong.